last year I've been working as a marine environmental consultant since 1990. For some of you are in university, high school, possibly even born. Yeah, been around a while. I was working for the first 10 years on a casual basis, and then moved into 16 years full-time with some large multinational environmental consultancies. And this time last year, the company I was working for, by the name of AECOM, you might have heard of them, they decided that I should go and set up my own business. It was a nice way of saying they made my position redundant and felt that they didn't want to pay me full-time. So that was fine. On the other hand, they also said, well, I hope you come back and keep working on the projects that you've been working on, which I've been doing for the last 12 months. So there's 5 things I want to go through tonight. So I've only got 15 minutes, so it's going to be quick. The first one is we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Next up knows. So why is that important? How much do we learn when we're speaking? So how much am I learning tonight by speaking with you? Nothing. Hopefully with your 2 ears you're learning something, or you're going to learn something from what we share up here tonight. So 2 ears and 1 mouth. How does that relate to a career? I'll take you back to 1980. I can't take you back there because you weren't here. But back in 1980, the way to find this, when I first finished university, the way to get a job was to sit down, you read through the papers, you find a classified ad advertising a job, and you apply for it. So I did that for 18 months. It took 18 months before I scored a job. Why did it take me so long? Part of the reason was I'd go to interviews and I would engage my mouth, not my ears. I'd spend a lot of time telling them what I could do, which they were already read in the CV, but I'd regurgitate what I knew and tell them what a great thing it would be if I was to get this job, how good it would be for me, for my career, if I was to get that job. I didn't realise that they didn't give a flying flop what it was that I wanted. They only cared about what they wanted. So fast forward 10 years, I went back to uni, I went to Townsville, did a Masters, came back to Perth. By this stage, someone had told me the fact that we had 2 ears and 1 mouth. I didn't realise that before. So what was my approach when I came back? So when I came to Perth, I knew a lot of people in Townsville, having studied there for a few years. I knew one person in Perth, in the marine environmental game. And that was a fellow who's a member of the EIANZ, a fellow of the EIANZ. And he'd actually interviewed me for a job before I went to the university in Townsville. The job hadn't come through. So I went to talk to him. And I said, okay, what's the story with the environmental game over here? You know, what's the best way to get into the environmental game? So I went there to listen. The only thing I said to him was, I've just come back from Townsville, I've finished my Masters, I'm looking to learn about what is going on in WA at the moment. And then I sat back and listened. And he told me, forget about the marine research labs at Waterman's, everybody wants to go there. Some of them needs to die before you get a foot in there. WA government's not hiring anyone, you can forget about that. I said, university, you might be able to get in there. I thought, I've just come out of uni again, I ain't going back there. I said, what other options are there? He said, well, there's this thing called consultancy. Now, consultancy in 1990 was a fairly young industry. There was not many people in Perth as environmental consultants. So I said, okay, tell me a bit about this game. He said, there's a mob headed up by a guy called Ian Provo. He runs one. He said, there's a bunch of scientists, mainly out of Murdoch Uni. He said, they're pretty good at what they do, but they can't write. Still haven't right. He said, there's another mob called BVG. Okay. And just got a couple of contacts. So what did I do then? Pick one. Well, the Provo sounded pretty good. I knew I could write, so I might be able to help him out. So 1990, how did I approach them? Did I send them an email? Guess what? No email in 1990. Did I send them a letter? Why would I do that? Send a letter on the CV, possibly get a letter back saying, yeah, thanks, nothing available at the moment, keep it on file. You might have seen some of these letters yourself. You might have received some emails these days saying exactly the same thing. Yeah, look, you look really good, but you know, nothing available at the moment. We'll keep your CV on file in a minute. So, only way to go. Found out where they were, rolled up to the front counter, CV in hand. I said, I come to talk to Ian Provo. Lady at the counter said, is he expecting you? I said, no. I said, I've just come back from Townsville. I thought I'd sit down and have a chat with him, just find out a bit about what you do here. So he happened to be in the office, which was great. Took my CV, sat down in the conference room, and we started chatting. Well, I started listening. So I said, Ian, what do you do here? He knew what I could do, it's in the CV. So he looks through the CV and he says, this is one of the points I'll probably make later, is that what enabled me to get the foot in the door was not the fact that I finished a Masters. I didn't know. It was the fact that while I was on the Barrier Reef, I did a seagrass survey, I did a fish survey, I did a crown of thorn survey, I did a coral survey. I had practical in-field experience while I was there. That counted so much more than a document which was that thick. So anyway, Ian phoned through this and he said, yeah, look, you've got some good experience, I granted that. He said, the only thing is, the economy's a bit down at the moment, don't have any jobs going. I said, that's fine. Well, after a job, I said, I'm heading back to Townsville for winter, because after you've ever spent any time in the tropics in winter time, you know what it's like. It's a downside nice up here in winter. So I said, look, I'll be around for a few months. If there's anything there to hand with, just let me know. I might want to help you out. Oh, he said, do you not have a job? I said, no. I'm happy to do some work for you. So he said, oh, we'll be doing a seagrass survey next week in Coburn Sound. Do you know seagrasses? I said, yeah, I'd like some stuff with dropfield seagrasses, temperate seagrass, not that much different. Yeah, I can help out with that. He said, you sure don't want a job? I said, no, it's fine. And I worked on that basis for the next 10 years. If the work was there, he saw me. If the work wasn't there, which it really wasn't, he didn't see me. And every 6 months he didn't see me because I went back to the tropics for winter. So that was the benefit that I got from having 2 years in my mouth. He did all the talking. All I had to say was I done the job. Because if you go looking for a job, and I've been in, as I say, when I moved to a full-time role, I was then interviewing people for full-time jobs. And a job is a commitment that an employer makes to somebody that they're going to pay them 40 hours a week, regardless of whether that work is, or what they pay them is then charging on the client or not. So you become a liability as an employee. As a contractor, you're there when the work's there, you're not there when it's not. It takes the liability away. So I was actually juggling 3 jobs when I first came back to Townsville. One was with EIANZ, one was at Underwater World. I set up a volunteer program there. That's another story. And the third one was down at water skiing park as a water ski instructor, because I've been water skiing every weekend in Townsville. So I juggled that. Good Lord. Well, I've only been talking for 4 minutes. That's good going. Okay, number 2. That's only number 1. I've got 5. Number 2. It pays to have a speciality. I know one of the speakers in a minute is going to talk about how they're a generalist, so I won't make any rude comments about generalists. But I found it's very important to have a speciality, something you can hang your hat on that is a little bit different, that makes you stand out from the crowd. Because I feel a lot of people now coming out of uni and they're saying, I'm a generalist. You know, I just look at the environment in general. Yeah, that's great, James. Go and join the queue of generalists, that's a mile long. You need to have something to differentiate yourself. And people have said to me during the career development processes that I've been through with people, as people of my team that I've been managing, they say, oh, look, what's the next big thing coming up? You know, what area should I be specialising in? Where's the most work going to be coming from? I said, don't look at me, I don't know. My key thing is find something, whatever interests you, and make that speciality. You will devote far more time and effort and be far more successful in learning something you're interested in learning, rather than something you think is going to make you enjoyable in the future. So that's number 2. Number 3, I have to consult my notes now. Coach's notes. And I need glasses to read the notes. It's 5 years. What's that number 3 say?
Specialist area.
I'm 3.
Oh, 3, sorry, I'll read it. Technical network.
Technical network, where's yours one? Technical network?
Can't count.
Okay, very quickly, because there are 3 more to go. Technical network. Technical skills more so than network. Maintain your technical network. It's very tempting when you get involved in a company. The lure of management can be quite strong. You know, the managers are the lofty people, they make more money, they drive better cars, they've got an office maybe with a pop plant.
Supposedly.
Yeah. It's very attractive to become a manager. It can be. I've been up to the top level of management in terms of managing a marine environmental team, but it's definitely further to office management. Because the reason I got into my business is to work in the field and do the technical work. wasn't to manage people. That sort of came along as a byproduct. So if you go up the management chain, just make sure you keep a hold of your technical skills. Because when you come to decide that they don't want to pay you full time anymore, if you're a manager, if you've been a manager for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, when you're out on your own, you've then got to find another company that wants to employ a manager. If you've got technical skills with a good technical network, it's amazing. 12 months ago I made this transition. 12 months later my network is still providing work and there's more in the pipeline coming through. If I was a manager, I wouldn't have those opportunities because I've got technical work. It is. How many minutes? Remember? Okay. 2 to go. Number 4. Heard it a long time ago.
On the list.
I don't need number 4 or 5. I know what they are. Number 4, I heard a very wise man once told me. He said, never tell anybody everything that you know. So with that, I'll pass over to Diane.
I'm assuming that we're going to have some questions afterwards and things like that, and we'll probably...
Like, no questions, no.
No questions? Straight to the bar. All right. Okay, so my name's Diane Dowell. I work with Alcoa. I've only been here for a couple of months, but my role is the Global Environmental Program Manager within the refining business unit. So I manage the environmental program for Alcoa's refineries globally. So I've got 3 refineries here in WA, I've got 2 in Brazil and 1 in Spain. But I didn't start in resources, I didn't start in mining, and I certainly didn't start in refining. I did my undergraduate degree here. I went travelling after I graduated because that's what you do when you're in Perth. You've got to go on your sabbatical somewhere once you graduate. And I came back and I did postgraduate work in Queensland, probably at the same university that Ian was at actually, just maybe a few years later. So I graduated mid-90s. It was a pretty depressed market in the mid-90s. It was a few years after Ian. And we were...
Okay, you're younger than me, I get the point. Everybody is.
Everyone's younger than you, Ian. So at the time we were having what was referred to as the recession we needed to have, according to Keating. And just to give you some context, at the time we had unemployment levels at around about 11.5%. You're coming into a market where we've got unemployment levels at around about 5.5%. So when we came out of university, and it's always hardest on the people that are young, you know. So you come out, you're keen, you've got this degree, you're being educated up to your eyeballs, and you want to find a place in which to actually apply that knowledge. And you're not only do you have that, you know, that interest in that information, you know, that you want to apply, you're also a bit of a sponge in the sense that you're really wanting to get out there and learn stuff from people. So I was no different. I was up in North Queensland. All my family, except for my sister who lived in Cairns at the time, all my family was back here in Perth. And my sister said to me, why are you going back to Perth? And I went, I don't know, because that's where I live. And she said, don't worry about it. Come and live in Cairns for a bit. So I went from Townsville up to Cairns. I worked in a hotel. I was working front office, checking in guests and customers, and while I was there, I went and spoke to people and ended up at Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service, which is a little bit like our conservation agency. And they were in the process of rewriting some of the management plans for the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, particularly in and around the Cairns area and around Green Island. And put my hand up and a bit like Ian, I went, no, I'm not looking for a job. I just want to get some experience. And I was through that experience, working on whatever they decided to send my way one day a week when I wasn't working full-time in the hotel, that somebody said to me, hey, you should join the EIANZ. They're a professional association for environmental graduates, blah, blah, blah. So I went, sure, no problem. I'll sign myself up. I'm looking for my first postgraduate job. While I was there, a bit like in those days, you know, I think we had email, but there was, you know, it was few and far between. We still went through the paper. And you also went and knocked on doors and you rang people up. And through that process, I got offered a job as a marine biologist on a boat. I got offered a job as a ecologist in a resort where I basically work as the ecologist on the tourism staff, so take people on tours and things like that. I got offered a job in Brisbane. Never having been to Brisbane in my life. got offered a job in Brisbane with a tourism consultancy as their office manager. So I wasn't going down there as a consultant, I was going down there to do their books and answer their phone and find documents that were done by the consultants. But for me, what I saw was an opportunity to pursue my career. I looked at it and I went, yeah, you know what? It'd be fun being the marine biologist on the boat. It'd be fun being the terrestrial ecologist in the resort and everything like that. And that'll be fun for the next couple of years, and I'll play and I'll, you know, party and everything like that because we're in EIANZ. But where do I want to go to next? So I decided to take the job down in Brisbane. And I went down there and didn't really like it. Learned a lot from that. But in the process of being down there, a job was advertised with a local government authority just south of Brisbane for an ecotourism research assistant. And I thought, I can do that. I did ecotourism in my degree. I've been working with a tourism consultancy. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And there were 120 applications for that job, and there were a number of people that were connected to somebody that sat on the council, and out of all of those applications I got that job. And it was the stepping stone for me to move forward in my career. And it was still, to this day, I'd say I've had 3 jobs that I really, really enjoy and can just about remember every single day, and that was one of them. I learned so much, I had a ball. From there I went into the federal government, took a grad position in the federal government, went to Canberra, learned a lot about the way that the federal process operates, and then from there I decided to come back to WA, so I took a job with the state government and was in state government for a period of time. Before then, jumping ship in the early to mid-2000s, around about 2004, 2005, and stepping into mining. So while I've been in mining, I've worked with startups, I've worked with major corporations, I've done a whole raft of different things. So I think, you know, from the sense of like, I have a joke that I talk about in respect to my career. I started out in ecotourism, and before I left government, I was working in waste management. So the joke was always, how did I start off working in a World Heritage area and then end up working in waste management? It was, everything made sense at the time, and to this day I'm now working in a refinery where one of our big issues is how we deal with our waste. So none of those experiences have ever been the wrong experience for me. It didn't quite seem like a straight path, but the way that it wove around, it gave me things that I have drawn on as I've gone around. I am admittedly one of those generalists. I have taken the management route. I tend to work in management. But that's what I like to. I like to organise stuff. I'm very, very good at it. We got told, you know, to have a bit of a think about, you know, like if you could, say, talk to ourselves as we, you know, like now, what would we say? I think the thing that I didn't realise, that probably Ian realised a little bit earlier, is that networking is pivotal. And probably more so, because when I was applying for jobs, the jobs were in the paper, and that's how you got your role. You saw an advertisement, you applied for that advertisement, you went through the standard recruiting process, and that's what happened. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Jobs are still advertised, but most of the time, unless you're needing to have a very transparent process, such as those within government, but even sometimes those ones still, there's somebody earmarked or they're applying for their own job and things like that. But most of the time, the roles that people get, they get because they know somebody, because they've done some work with somebody, and so build your relationships with people, maintain them, even when you think that you've moved into a different area. Touch base with people every so often. You know, if somebody does something for you, you know, thank them, but stay in touch with them and stuff like that, because you never know what's around the corner. And if you do get offered a redundancy, take it. I've had 2, best things ever. They're lots and lots of fun. They give you an opportunity to rethink. At the time you think, oh my God, my world is ending, but in actual fact they give you a different path to follow. So, you know, just keep that in mind, that you will weave a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm in my mid-40s, I'm still trying to work out what I want to be when I grow up, so don't worry too much. So, how to differentiate yourself? Think laterally. I've been doing a little bit of work recently, and I've been talking to, say, some of the recruiting and they're, you know, Alcoa has a graduate program, and so people want to get into that sort of company, and I've been chatting to like the recruiting people, and I've said, so how do you pick when you get 200, 300 applications from graduates that want to join Alcoa and come on board and everything? And they sort of said things like, think laterally about how you can show your skills to people. So, like if we talk about, a question you'll get asked will be, hey, how do you work in a challenging situation? Everybody wants to use the example that, well, at uni I had to do a group assignment. It's a bit like, yeah, so did the other 299 people that went through this course. So think maybe about the other stuff that you do, the networks that you have, the sporting clubs, the volunteer work, and think about showing your experience and your skills of what people are looking through at or for in those roles through that. So if you can sit there and say, hey, yeah, I'm part of a cricket club and I sit on the committee and we had to organise an end of year event and there was conflict in that group, because it shows that you can think laterally about, about different situations, not the others at uni, because it will make you stand out from everybody else. And at the end of the day, getting that first role and even getting that next role and getting all the other roles that will happen after that will be from your ability to be able to differentiate yourself from the market. Like Ben said, have that specialisation, show that you've got a broad network, that you can draw on that network, show that you've got different experiences. When I went for my role with Alcoa, I talked about some of the work that I do with a not-for-profit committee that I sit upon, and how I had to go and do a safety audit at that, and the different experiences that I got through that. My role's not safety, they're in mining, they're very keen about how to embrace safety. So I was able to demonstrate something through a different experience that they appreciated. So that's probably me. I'll hand on.
Okay, my name's Andrew. I'm an environmental consultant, although I haven't been for the whole of my career. I graduated in '95 with an environmental engineering degree. And went straight into what I thought was going to be my career path, Swan River Trust, Water and Rivers Commission, which then ended up translating into a contract role with what was then the Department of Environmental Protection, which went through about 6 or 7 name changes while I was there. It's now Department of Water, Environmental Regulation, and did licensing with them for gold mines, brickworks, quarries, power stations. From there, I got an opportunity to move out to Kalgoorlie and work with their office, running their office in Cal, which was an experience, particularly where you have angry opponents coming in and smashing your door down, angry community members who have been known to hold government regulators by the throat up against the wall when they're not happy with outcomes. Moved back to Perth, worked for the EPA for about 3 years, so about 8 years in total with government, and then decided that I might like to change and shifted into consultancy, where quickly picked up a range of different skills which you really need to as a consultant, and became a little bit of a generalist here. They're good people. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I started out as a consultant dealing with approvals, impact assessments and contamination work with a company called BSD, which then became Cardno. Left them after about 8 years, went to a smaller consultancy which specialised in what I would consider environmental sustainability, or a lot of work in relation to wetlands and wastewater treatment projects, a lot of contamination work as well. Took a redundancy from them, which is one of the best things that ever happened to me, even though, as Di said, your world falls apart at the time. My wife gave me 2 weeks of mourning and then said, you better go and get yourself another job.